My jealous stepsister framed me, got me disowned, ruined my marriage and left me alone for 10 years. Today, my ex calls saying they finally know the truth. I, female, 40, have not heard from any of my family members for the last 10 years. 10 years back, I wouldn't have imagined living a life like this. Now I live in my apartment with my cat, Sushi. Sometimes when I miss my parents, I stalk them on Facebook. I have made no attempts to contact them since I knew that they wouldn't like it. But some developments that happened today have left me confused. My father died when I was 9. He was a power line technician and died working his job. My mother remarried 2 years later. That's how my stepfather and my stepsister, Melissa, female, 42, entered our lives. Melissa was 2 years older than me. Growing up, she was everything I wanted an elder sister to be. She was brilliant in academics and sports. She was very outgoing as well. I grew up just like her. We both had a very healthy school life. The love I had for her was mixed with an element of fear and respect. There were 2 reasons for this. 1, she was my elder sister, and 2, she was someone I looked up to. She was the favorite of my parents as well. I had no complaints about it. Once we reached college, we grew closer. I found the space to talk about personal troubles and confusions with her. It was around the same time she started taking drugs. She tried to get me into it as well. I had my reasons not to try it, so I never did. The main argument my sister used to encourage me to drug use was how she was successful in her life even after doing drugs. I was convinced by her statement because she was performing well like she used to. But after a few months, her life started to show the impacts of unchecked drug use. She started with weed, and by the end of it, she was on heroin. By the time we made some family intervention, she had started to fail college. She was in rehab for 6 months. When she returned home, she was a different person. She spoke very little and rarely ventured outside her room. This hurt me, but I was having the time of my life in college. I had good grades and solid chances of getting a job. After a month or 2 of staying in, my sister slowly started going out. She was finding a new balance in life. Instead of going back to college, she started working. A year later, I graduated college and got a job. I started saving money to move out. One day, I got a call from my stepfather while I was at work. He asked me to come straight home in the evening. I had nothing to panic about, so I didn't overthink it. Upon reaching home, he showed me a few sachets of white powder. From the looks of it, I knew that it was drugs. He told me that he found it in my room under a row of books. My sister going to rehab had traumatized my parents, so they had made it a habit to search our rooms once in a while. I had no idea how it came into my room. I denied his accusations at first, but while arguing with him, the possibility of this belonging to my sister crossed my mind. My parents wouldn't have tolerated the truth, so I took the fall for it. I convinced him that it was my first time and stored it in my room to use with my friends later. He was relieved when he learned I still haven't used it. To convince him, I even showed readiness to take a drug test. That did the trick. I didn't bring it up with my sister because I was too scared to confront her. I don't think our parents talked to her about it either because they fought. A conversation about drugs would trigger past trauma. Anyways, I moved out soon into a different city. I was 25 then and met my ex-husband, Mark, while working there. That's when the first major tragedy hit my life. My mother and stepfather decided to cut all contact with me. They shared it through email. The reason they stated was my presence in the family would deteriorate my sister's mental health. I called Melissa soon to learn that she had no idea what had happened. Melissa sided with me and talked about our parents. She told me that they have her locked up in their house for most of the day. She had no social life and missed going out. She was 27 by then. I felt that this was outrageous. I decided to help her financially by moving out. This brought us closer. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep. I tried to contact my mother multiple times. Even my attempts to visit them at our home failed because of their arrogance. So I stopped trying. I believed that I had my sister and boyfriend. That was enough for me. My sister moved out soon. Her life conditions improved a lot. I was ecstatic when I learned that she had started dating. She had a few flings during the early years of college, but this was her first relationship after so many years. I visited her a couple of times. She was the only family present during my wedding with Mark. Around the time of my marriage, she also moved to our city with her boyfriend. We started to meet and hang out more often. My parents still had a good relationship with her, so I got to know about the happenings in their life from her. I had to be content with that. I couldn't ask her to mediate a conversation between us because our parents didn't know that we were in contact. Even now, Melissa still used drugs, but her use was under control. Her apartment became our favorite hangout spot on the weekend. On most weekends, we partied at her place. It would mostly be the 4 of us, or at times a few of our closest friends would join. One week, I noticed that Mark was growing distant from me. We used to find time for each other to spend together. This brought my mental health down. Mark was the peacemaker in our relationship. I was worried about what had gotten into him. By the end of the week, Mark had packed his luggage and told me about his decision to move out. He gave me no reason and left. I called Melissa for some emotional support. She declined my calls initially, but after a while she called me back and shouted at me for ruining her relationship. I was losing the closest people I had in my life on the same day. I was lost with a lack of information. All I could do was lie on my bed and cry for hours. If there's one thing that I learned from the experience I had with my parents, it was that in life you are always alone. So I decided to make the first move. In 1 month, I filed for divorce from my husband and made a transfer request with my company. I was sent to another city and decided to start afresh. I had trouble trusting people, so I made very few friends. After 3 years, I got a cat. I named her Sushi. She's the only soul I trust in this world. Today I got a call from Mark. I was surprised. I had nothing against him. I have accepted the fact that Mark might have felt exhausted in our relationship. I was happy that he left immediately without dragging it into an unhealthy relationship. We started talking, and at one point he asked me whether it would be triggering to talk about a few things that happened in the past. I was okay with it. Then he narrated the list of incidents that completely changed the way I looked at my life. Melissa was at the center of all this. Mark was approached by Melissa's old boyfriend on Facebook a few days ago. He told him how difficult it was for him to deal with his guilt, the guilt of ruining our marriage. He talked about a side of Melissa that I didn't know existed. She was pure evil. By the time she had gotten out of rehab and slowly gotten her life back on track, I had moved far ahead and got a job in a well-paying company. That was the point where her jealousy began. She felt that our parents were just protective of her, and I was their favorite. She was the one who placed a sachet of drugs in my room for my father to find. After what had happened to Melissa, my father has aggressively opposed drug use, but their decision to go no contact with me came much later. Melissa's therapist told my parents that I was the one who first gave weed to her while we were in high school. She told her that my presence triggered Melissa. This made my parents furious, and they decided to go no contact with me for the sake of their daughter. But being the person she was, she used this window in my life to make me dependent on her. That's when she met her boyfriend who dealt with drugs every now and then. They had a very toxic relationship on the inside. Melissa was the one in control of everything. She shared all her strategies with him. Melissa and my husband were the only people who had access to mobile phones. So one night while I was passed out drunk at her house, she took my phone and her boyfriend's phone and created a text conversation between this. Her boyfriend was on board with this. She then deleted the chat from my phone. The day after, she informed my husband that she doubted whether something was happening between me and her boyfriend. That was during the last week of my life with Mark. She faked a breakup in front of Mark and invited him over to go through her boyfriend's phone. He went over there to see the text and was heartbroken. I was shocked to learn about all this. Mark then gave me a heartfelt apology. He asked me if it would be possible to meet me. We both knew that our marriage was special. He wants it back now. I told him that getting back would be impossible as I found more comfort in my solitude now. Then I cut the call. He has called me multiple times now. Am I the a-hole for denying my ex-husband one more chance after 10 years because he apologized for the misunderstanding that led to our divorce? Update 1: 2 days have passed. The amount of anger and contempt I feel towards Melissa is unfathomable. I hate her with all my heart. I still have no idea where she is. If I had some access to her, I would call and shout at her. Update 2. My parents have shamelessly reached out to me after all these years. They told me that they learned about their mistakes a couple of years ago but were hesitant to approach me. What made me angry was that Melissa was still living with them. They didn't kick her out even after learning about what she did to me. They repeated the same things my ex-husband told me in the name of apology. But their overprotectiveness towards Melissa let her manipulate them easily. I was not ready to forgive them for this. Update 3: I had to make a tough decision. I'm sure that in my life ahead I won't be making any great relationships. I never put any effort into it. The only way to have some people in my life was to return to old relationships. Now was the time because both my parents and ex-husband were ready to embrace me. But I decided that living a lonely life was better than being with people who left me when I needed the most. Sushi is enough for me at this point in life. NTA. Your ex-husband was gullible enough to fall for her. That was his mistake. He got back to you to apologize and you accepted his apology. That should end there. You have no reasons to go back to him. NTA. It would be exhausting to reignite a relationship that ended 10 years ago. From your post, I understand you're living in a different place than your ex-husband. Your instincts won't let you trust him as he left you the first time without any reason. Maybe he hates confrontations, but he did not give you time and space to explain yourself. It's a huge red flag. Next story, I'm 35. My brother-in-law, 37, is known for impulsively spending frivolously on things for himself and does not have the money for most recently a pizza oven, paddleboard, and other costly non-essentials. He very much tries to keep up with the Joneses as well. Anything he gets is because he saw someone else buy it because it's trending. He's up to his eyeballs in debt, not making money at his commission job, and currently fighting for his sobriety against a decade-long cocaine addiction that he successfully hid from his wife until a few years ago. I honestly believe his brain is stuck with cocaine impulsiveness, but he swears he doesn't need rehab or therapy to fix his issues. He has a nice truck with a $600 a month payment that his wife, my sister, 36, makes the payments on. Meanwhile, she drives herself and their baby around in the same car she had since high school. It's a tin box that isn't up to today's safety standards. Brother-in-law hit me up about wanting to buy a Rolex and wanted some advice about buying one. I sold them for a long time. At that point, I carefully worded my response and advised that luxury watches are for people who can afford them after everything else is taken care of, and he needs to prioritize his family before buying one. I also mentioned that in my experience, the people who can truly afford a Rolex could also flush the cost of one down the toilet and not be impacted even slightly, and that we're not in that economic class of people. I've seen people overextend themselves on these watches just to be able to flex, and that's exactly what he's doing. I perhaps went too far by saying if he has money for a Rolex, then he has money to put his wife and baby in a safer car that was built in this century. He got upset because I didn't tell him what he wanted to hear, but I meant what I said, and there is no one else there to save him from himself. His wife is trying to be very supportive of him and his recovery, and usually goes along with his impulse buys because it reduces their fighting and the money isn't going towards cocaine. It's not my business, but I worry for my little nephew and considerably less my sister who enables him. I'll accept the a-hole designation if I cross the line here. NTA. Sometimes people need to hear the truth, but in future, I wouldn't talk about anything you have experience with. Just say I'm not comfortable discussing it. Anything you say he will use as a reason to indulge himself. Just grave rock him every time. You should also consider, if you haven't already, offering to help your sister find a therapist for herself. She needs a reality check if she's driving her child around in an unsafe car while paying for a nice car for your brother-in-law. NTA. You were brutally honest and blunt, but he asked for your opinion. If he didn't want to hear it, he shouldn't have asked. NTA. If you can't buy 2 Rolexes, you shouldn't buy one. Dude's acting like a kid with money to burn because he's been enabled. You were right to call him out. Your sister has some ownership too. Instead of tightening the purse strings like she should, she enabled his behavior to keep the peace. It's good that you called him out, but he's not the only one you should have a conversation with. Next story, my brother has a girlfriend with a really annoying habit. Whenever someone brings up any topic that involves something happening in the future, she always responds with some variation of, well, the world is going to end by then anyway. It's pretty aggravating because it adds nothing of value to the actual topic of conversation. Whether the topic is career goals, financial planning, vacation ideas, or anything else, she always interjects with her apocalyptic predictions. Right now, my union is negotiating for a raise for us, and I am excited about it. I was telling my brother and sister about how excited I am and how I intend to put the money towards my retirement savings. Again, brother's girlfriend interjected that none of us will live to see retirement, so it doesn't matter. I got annoyed and snapped at her, saying, "Hey, learn a new song. This one is played out." My brother's girlfriend was offended, said I was rude, and asked for an apology. I said I disagreed, thought she was the rude one, and would like an apology myself. My brother told me to climb off my high horse and chill. My sister said that she was also tired of the non-stop gloom and doom and would like a reprieve. My brother's girlfriend said, "I see how it is," and left with my brother. My brother said I was needlessly antagonistic. He said his girlfriend can't relate to topics like that because she has a non-traditional job, an Etsy store, but wants to have a meaningful contribution to the conversation. He said I was mean to her and should apologize. I really don't think I should and don't want to. But was I mean? First, the a-hole, NTA. How are you needlessly antagonistic when she's the one being negative about something you were excited about? She doesn't need to be able to relate to you to contribute to the conversation. My friend is a stay-at-home mom. I can't relate to that, but I contribute by asking questions or just commenting that I could never do that and she's amazing. Both are uplifting because I know it's something she loves. She could have just said she was happy for you. No need to contribute negatively when someone is obviously excited. I wouldn't sweat it. She sounds like a drag. NTA. If she feels for some reason the world is going to end down the road, that's her business. But constantly bringing it up is tedious and self-defeating. If she feels like she wants to contribute, she can talk about arts, movies, sports, etc., etc. She does not get to shove her apocalyptic predictions on the rest of you. By the way, tell your brother that when you were talking about saving for retirement and she brings up, it doesn't matter that the world is going to end anyway. She's kind of shutting down the entire conversation because she's really saying what's the point in having this conversation since it won't matter anyway. NTA. You and your sister, your comments were not personal attacks and were clever retorts. Your poor brother seems a bit deluded. Girlfriend must be really attractive in some way. Girlfriend clueless, classic Debbie Downer, maybe raised that way. A joy-sucking vampire, no apologies needed. She left the scene. A happy conclusion. Maybe she will stay away.